This is a foundation paper piecing tutorial, and I'm going to show you on the flags that we are doing for Saturday Sampler. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to copy the 2 pages of instructions, and then you're going to cut all the pattern pieces apart from each other. And I just take a rotary cutter and I just kind of cut just about 1/8 of an inch, just a little bit outside of that outside faint line. All of the dark lines are sewing lines, and so eventually this will be sewn into a seam around the outside, and then this is your seam allowance, that light line. So you're going to cut apart all of your flags. You'll have 3 small ones, 3 medium-sized ones, and 1 large one. Okay, next you're going to fold your flags. And I use this metric ruler right here, and I just use that shaded area right out along that one edge. It's just a little bit less than 1/4 and it works great. This is a medium-sized flag, and I'm going to start folding by putting that shaded area into the bigger number. Number 1 will never have a fold, so I'm going to put that on the line, and I'm just going to lift this up and give it a little crease in the space number 2. Then I'm going to move it down and put a crease in space number 3. I'm going to continue doing this, going into every number that's bigger than the last one. When I get here and I put a fold in 7, number 8 is over here. And you'll notice that all these numbers are upside down. That's because it's easier for me to crease with the ruler that direction. Since number 8 is going this way, all of these numbers are less than 8, so I'm going to put a crease in number 8. Then I'm going to come back this way and do a crease in number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and in number 14. Okay, now I'm ready to start sewing. I've got all of my pieces creased. Next, I'm going to assign them some fabric. And so here's a stack. It's got reds and reds and beiges, and that will go to this fabric, to this flag. Okay, next I'm going to look on the back, and I'm going to realize that this is piece number 1. So I'm going to fold that over, and I'm going to realize that this space right here has to be covered with my piece number 1. And since our flag is 7 red stripes, we're going to glue on a red stripe first. So I'm just going to get a little bit of a glue stick, and I put just a little dab of glue there, and then I'm going to put this strip on so that it's even with those first folds. Okay, I can put that just a little bit less. Okay, whoops, the glue was not sticking. There we go. Okay, so then I'm going to lift it up to the light, and I will be able to look through and see that that piece number 1 has fabric outside of it, all the way around all 4 sides. Okay, then I'm ready to take it to the machine and add piece number 2, which will be a white, because this one is red. So I'll take a white piece of a white strip, and I'm going to sew right there on the line between 1 and 2. So I'm going to lay this like this, and I'm going to make this raw edge even. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I will start sewing out here about 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go straight down that line and off the fabric. I've set my sewing machine to a smaller stitch. It's about 1 or 1.5. Okay, next I'm going to show you one that has that stripe sewn on. So here we are. This is the second stripe. I've glued my red stripe in place. I took it to my sewing machine and I started to sew right here, and I sewed down and off the edge, and then right here I just angled off. Okay, then I would take it to the ironing board, or you can finger press, and I'm going to press that open. Now I turn it back over and I realize that this is piece number 2 and this is shape number 2. So I'm going to fold my paper where it was previously folded in number 3. I don't want to fold it in number 2 because that would be too small. So I fold it one bit further so it's on the fold in shape number 3, and then I open it up and I make sure that it's in the right spot. Then I'm going to take some scissors, and I'm actually going to trim off this because it's plenty big, and I'm going to trim this. I like to trim with scissors because when I use a rotary cutter, I slice off this fold way too easily. Okay, now I have piece number 2 on, and it's all trimmed with a scant 1/4 inch seam. So then I would get another red piece, and I would put it right sides together, and I always scoot it down to this edge. That's because this edge doesn't need to, it's just easier to handle with a least amount of bulk on this edge rather than this edge. Then I would sew on the line between 2 and 3 because I'm adding piece number 3. I start out here and I sew clear off, and then I would press that one. So let me find my sample where I have all those pieces. Here we go. This is a small flag, and on this one I'll show you how to fold it differently in a minute, but I still trim the same. So I have piece number 1, 2, 3. The third piece was the last one. I look at my paper and I say my fold is right here in piece number 4. I'm going to fold my paper, and then I'm going to peek at it to make sure that my fold is in the right space. And then I'm going to trim and trim right next to that fold. So now this one is ready for its next piece. So then I would place it right sides together. I would turn it over, take it to my sewing machine. I start out here and I sew down and off. Now I would continue doing that until I have all of these first stripes on. Red, white, red, white, red, white, red. Then you're going to add a blue piece. So here is that piece. I just sewed on piece number 7, and I'm ready for my field of blue. Okay, so I have creased this, and so I'm going to fold this over, and if any of these stitches are out into the paper, I just tear it away so that I can trim right there, because we always trim the seam that we're going to sew next. Okay, so now I have that seam allowance included in there. I'm going to take my blue piece and I'll put it right sides together. I'll make sure that it has plenty of room up and down and this way, so I'll just line up one of those raw edges. Here's my first fold, so I've got oodles and oodles of fabric. I take it to my sewing machine. I start out here at the edge and I sew down here to almost to this number 10 line right here. So a little ways into number 9. Then I would take that to my ironing board and press it like this. Okay, now we're going to add the long stripes that go on the bottom. So to do that, we're going to go back to here. I'm going to notice that this right here, this seam is the one that I have not sewn. So I'm going to fold my paper right here on the next fold. And I would trim that off and then open it back up, lay my next piece on, and I'm ready to continue to finish the flag. When your flags are all finished, and this one is not sewn, but you will turn it over so that you can see this pattern. You're going to take a regular quilting ruler and you're going to lay it so that that 1/4 inch marking is right on that solid line, and you'll trim off all 4 sides. Then you'll peel off the paper and your flags will be all finished. Okay, let's back up a little bit to the small flag, which is a little bit trickier. That's because these are not quite 1/4 inch seam allowances because the stripes are very thin. So when I fold this one, I'm going to place my ruler so that that fold will still be in number 2. If I put it right up here, it's going to be barely in number 2. I'm just going to back it up just a little bit so it's a little bit less than that shaded area. And I'm going to fold my pattern that way. It'll still be plenty big enough seam for those little tiny pieces, and it will work great. So do you see where I'm placing that? And that will just give you a smaller than a 1/4 seam allowance, and you'll just do it the exact same way that you did on the larger flags.